Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. We have entered the feeling guilty that you're inside playing video games phase of the year. It's so freaking beautiful outside in Vancouver, BC right now. Everybody's just walking around with big smiles on their faces. The sun is shining. It just feels incredible out there. But there are still lots and lots of fun games that you can play inside. We're going to be talking about one of those today with the creator of Shakedown Hawaii. Brian Provinciano is back on EP Live, and he's our guest today. I can't wait to talk to him about the launch of the game, which is out now everywhere. It's on every console, including the Vita. But we'll talk about launching this game and how it feels to talk with people that are playing it with its creator very soon. First, we've got a rundown to get to, and I've got a note to make. We had some kind of finicky internet issues just before we started rolling, so if there's any hiccups in the stream, we are on it. We know we can't control the internet, so we'd like to try to control the internet. I don't think anybody can control the internet, but if something happens, you know it's because there's some kind of flakiness going on with the internet. But this is dedicated, our rundown today, to Mage Drifter, who said, great interview, guys, talking about Echo the Dolphin. That was such a treat for me to have Ed Annunziata and James and Sam from Tigertron on the show the other day. Had such a great conversation. If you haven't checked out that interview, please do. Ed Annunziata, who worked at Sega for a long time, doesn't do a lot of interviews, so we got something very cool there with him. And I'm also going to give a special happy birthday shout-out to Matt Brace, Spidey82. Happy birthday, buddy. We love your support of EP so much. Thank you for your many years of watching our content. Now let's get started with your rundown. Disney has done some major reshuffling to make sure their two biggest sci-fi properties don't conflict with each other. Following their acquisition of Fox, Disney has shifted the release date of the dates of the upcoming Avatar sequels and the upcoming Star Wars movies so that they're not in theaters at the same time. Avatar 2 was slated to hit theaters in late 2020, but has been delayed to late 2021, while the first new Star Wars movie after Episode 9 will hit theaters in late 2022. Following that pattern, Disney will alternate between one new Avatar sequel and one new Star Wars movie every December until 2027, giving themselves plenty of breathing room. Avatar director James Cameron is notorious for taking his time, so this doesn't come as too big of a surprise. And as for Star Wars, the 2-year gap between each film confirms rumors that Disney wants to slow down the pace following the poor reception of Solo. And I think this is a wise move, especially in the Star Wars camp. They've got all the TV shows coming with Mandalorian and the captain, I forget his last name. I forget. Cassian Andor, that's right, from Rogue One. I'm looking forward to those shows. K2SO is going to be in that. That's going to be cool. Hopefully those are awesome. I've been hearing great things, and I think that will, even if Episode 9 underdelivers or underwhelms, which I think a lot of Star Wars people that didn't like Episode 8 are kind of feeling that that's probably what we're in store for, those folks out there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think that JJ is going to try to, right the ship and make something really, really fun to go out on. But hopefully the shows are awesome and the theme park launches and is well received and people can get in without having to wait in line for 10 hours. And so all of that reporting is going to start coming back to us, and we're going to get the shows to kind of critique for ourselves very soon. But I do think it's wise to take a breather and kind of reboot, particularly if it's going to be Rian Johnson writing and directing the first of his trilogy, which is potentially what the rumor is. We don't know if it's going to be the D.B. Weiss version, the Game of Thrones guys. We don't know how the order is going to be, but we'll find out, man. We're going to find out pretty soon. It's crazy when you start throwing out all these dates, though. 2020 to 2027 sounds like that sounds like Star Wars. It sounds like we're in space already. It's crazy, these dates, but they're imminent. They're right there. They also had a whole bunch of Marvel dates in there. And Disney has delayed another Fox movie yet again. The troubled X-Men spinoff, The New Mutants, has been given a new release date of April 3rd, 2020. That's almost 2 years after it was originally slated to arrive, with the film having already been pushed back several times in order to get massive reshoots. There were rumors that Fox executives were unhappy with the film long before the Disney acquisition, and now that Disney is in charge, the new release date will give them extra time to tinker with it. The new release date also means that New Mutants will be the last Fox-produced X-Men movie. Going forward, Disney plans to start fresh with the franchise and introduce new versions of the characters into the shared Marvel Studios universe. So that's going to be interesting to see how Disney and Marvel kind of work this out, right? Saying bye-bye to all of the people that have been cast. It's a long list of people, including some Game of Thrones stalwarts. Some great actors have been sort of brought into the fold of all of these X-Men movies, and I've liked a lot of them. We don't have to kind of dump on all of these films because there's been a lot of great X-Men movies, and it's going to be a little bit bittersweet to say goodbye to James McAvoy and that whole posse of different people. I'm trying to remember all the other actors' names. I cannot. There were tons of them. But we've already said goodbye to Hugh Jackman, who was the best hire that the X-Men movies ever got, so I think we can deal with saying goodbye to some of the other guys. All right, now over to a much bigger and hopefully better Marvel movie. Marvel Studios have found their newest hero. May have found their newest hero. Game of Thrones keeps coming up. I wonder why. And Bodyguard actor Richard Madden is apparently in the running to star in the upcoming Marvel Eternals movie. Variety reports that he's in talks to play the heroic Icarus, one of the leaders of the superpowered Eternals, opposite the film's headliner, Angelina Jolie, as the even more powerful Cersei. Richard Madden is a rising star in Hollywood and is one of several names rumored to be up for the role of James Bond when Daniel Craig retires. I actually, after watching Bodyguard, I felt pretty good about him being Bond. There's been no official announcement, and they clearly won't say anything until the last James Bond movie is out there. I think he would be good, but if he's going to be in Eternals, I don't know how you kind of balance two huge, iconic things like that at the same time. Sometimes these, the Bond movies, they... with reshoots and traveling and all of the stuff that can happen when you shoot on location, sometimes these movies take a long time, and if that eats into his Eternals schedule, because if he signs up for a Marvel movie, he's not just appearing in the Eternals, he's going to be all over the place, right? He'll be in Guardians and Doctor Strange or whatever, So I don't know if he can do both. So this almost, to me, says that Richard Madden is probably out of the running for James Bond. So now it's like, who would you cast as James Bond again for the next 2 years? Because this guy, I think, was sort of a front runner as the potential guy here. But if he takes this Marvel role and works with Angelina Jolie, that would be a good move. I think he would be seen by a lot of people. And I know nothing about the Eternals, but just based on the strength of the successful Marvel run so far, I want to see this movie. All right, gamers aren't the only ones disappointed with the sci-fi game Anthem. EA has confirmed for the first time that the game did not meet their expectations. Speaking with investors, CEO Andrew Wilson says bluntly that the game underperformed and did not sell as well as they had predicted, which is especially troublesome because EA had already lowered their sales expectations before launch. When it was first released, Anthem was plagued with glitches and bugs as well as poor reviews, generating negative word of mouth. And more recently, reports have surfaced about harsh working conditions and a brutal crunch time at developer BioWare. The good news is that looking forward, EA plans to continue supporting Anthem in the hopes that they can turn things around, and they've also reiterated their support for BioWare itself. And all of this is just tragic news, not fully unexpected. As part of that statement, Andrew Wilson says that it's not just affecting EA, this kind of change, this sweeping change for launching live games. It's affecting the entire industry. And you know what it is, guys? I think we all know what it is. It's hard to expect the full price for a game and have all of this extra content sort of be attached to it, that sort of end game, and all of these other promises attached to that full price for the core experience. And then there's also all of this embedded transactional feature set that's super implied, and so when you load up the game, you can kind of feel the churn and the ways that the machine is working to kind of get some more money out of you. And I just feel like game companies maybe should pull back a little bit on trying to make these games a service and ever-present, ever-populated online experiences, and just figure out how to get us great games. Like, imagine if Anthem had been, maybe even a standalone lower price thing. Maybe it came out at $50 or something like that, and it was just a single player experience to get you into the world. And then Anthem 2 was some big, massive thing. Same could have been said for Destiny as well. They're creating massive universes. They're creating rich worlds and cool characters and great mechanics and things that we want to get into. But sometimes I think many times these companies bite off more than they could chew, and it is surprising how often they're surprised by it. But I'm glad to hear that EA isn't sort of diminishing, at least in the public sense, diminishing their support for BioWare. They're an incredible studio. They have more than proven themselves. EA, if you do anything to BioWare, you will never live that down. BioWare deserves all of our love, and let them have another crack at it. I want to see some more single-player stuff from them. They're an incredible story-based studio, and this industry needs that studio. So hopefully nothing happens over there. All right, you guys, that's going to do it for our rundown. Let's take a look back at this day in everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for May 8th. On this day in 1912, one of the world's oldest movie studios was born. Film producer Adolf Zukor founded the Famous Players Film Company, which changed its name to Paramount Pictures 2 years later. Zukor had made a fortune investing in primitive Nickelodeon short films, and he founded Paramount as a way to create longer feature-length films, seeing the potential that they had with everyday consumers. The company's first films were released later that year. On May 8, 1958, a big screen legend was reborn. The British horror movie Dracula premiered in theaters, starring Christopher Lee as the famed bloodsucker. There had already been several Dracula film adaptations, but this was the first one to put a modern spin on the material, offering copious amounts of gore and nudity, or at least what was considered copious amounts at the time. This helped shape the horror genre for decades to come, and Christopher Lee's visceral portrayal of Dracula has been emulated by other actors ever since. Dracula was heavily censored in the UK when it was first released, but was finally released in its uncut version for the first time in 2007. They say you want a revolution? Well, on May 8th, 1976, you got one. The roller coaster New Revolution opened at Six Flags Magic Mountain in California, becoming the first modern roller coaster to have a vertical loop. Several early roller coasters in the Victorian era had attempted vertical loops, but none of them were very safe, and they didn't last long. The New Revolution was the first to do it reliably and allowed passengers to go through the death-defying loop at much faster speeds, 55 miles per hour. The trick was in the design of the wheels, which wrapped around the rails to lock the cars in place, allowing them to stay hugged to the track even when upside down. It was a smash success, and vertical loops have since become commonplace in modern roller coasters. Got a little bit of everything for you, some Hammer horror movies and some roller coasters, and now we are going to move on and talk to one of my favorite people in the video game industry. His game has just released. It's called Shakedown Hawaii. Please welcome to the stage our good friend Brian Provinciano from V-Blank Entertainment. Hello, sir. Wearing the Batman t-shirt.
Thank you. Yes.
And a nice big smile. Grab a seat right there. We switch things around a little bit so it's not so sidey. But it's great to see you. First question is, and remember that's directional, so you got to talk into it. How are you feeling?
Very tired.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was running on just a few hours sleep for a few nights in a row, and so last night I finally got almost a full night's sleep, but it was a good sleep.
So this game is launched. It's available for the Switch and the PC and all kinds of stuff right now. The Vita, I saw you posting some pictures for the Vita. Yeah. How was it, finishing it and shipping it, and are you tired because it's out there and people are telling you there's problems or bugs, or like what's going on now?
Well, luckily there haven't been many problems or bugs, and there have been a few, and they're all things like, I can fix that today, and so it's a lot smoother than it could have been.
Yeah.
So that's very good, and it's mainly just been nonstop responding to emails, and then as soon as I've responded to them, there's more, and then I got to respond to those, and just tabbing in the browser back and forth, and just been all day long. But it's been good, and the reception's been great. It's there was a time where I was really worried because, you know, if you're making quinoa and kombucha jokes, there was a time I worried like maybe I'm going way too niche. And it's really nice that they've landed for so many people. You know, not going to be for everyone, but it's just remarkable. And
Do you feel that people are expecting a Retro City Rampage 2 quite a bit, and they're surprised by you didn't want to make the same game again, right?
That actually, one of the things that made me laugh the most was, you know, as much as people loved Retro City Rampage, there were some critiques about people didn't like references. Yeah. And this game has no references, and then there are some critiques that there aren't references. And it just goes the fact that it's just like, you know,
you cannot please everybody.
No.
You cannot do it.
Yeah, and learning that eventually with the last game was what put me at peace.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I guess, right, because it's so personal.
Yeah.
You did so much of this on your own, and you were in isolation, but I think what you were doing is you were sharing the game with people around the industry. You sent me a beta code, too, and I was testing it and sending you a couple of notes here and there.
Yeah.
But was that a helpful process for you?
It was incredibly helpful. It's so critical because, you know, when you're working in a bubble, I'll tell you one thing, too, is that there were so many things on my to-do list where I was like, I could improve this, improve that even when all the beta feedback was coming in, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, I still didn't believe it because I was like, no, I see so many things. And it was one of those things that took me a while where eventually it's really just that you run out of time and you still have a to-do list, but you're like, you know what, it's just got to go out, and then you cross your fingers. The one thing that I could have done better with the testing, though, is it seems that there are some issues with the game if you 100% it, because there's a bit grindy at the end to get to 100%.
Okay.
And so I'm going to tweak that
I'm not there yet.
Right, yeah. And so one of the things that I had was you can get distracted and not do the story mode and then do some side stuff and whatever. But if you try and acquire the whole city too early, you won't have enough money and it's a lot harder.
Right.
So I've added some stuff to kind of nudge the player back to the story.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed so far, and I'm, you know, like I don't know, 15% or 20% into the game so far, so I've got a long way to go. But one of the things that I noticed is there's never a dull moment. Like it is a packed game.
Yes.
It's giving you this, it's giving you that. You're on the phone, you've got cutscenes, you've got this really good music piping through that you wish that SNES games had music that good, you know? Like it's just so alive, this game. And was that, I mean, when you're tweaking, when that work is done, are you able to kind of shift things around to kind of repace things, or is it all tied to, you know, triggers?
I probably spent the past at least year and a half tuning it, moving things around, adding connective tissue, tweaking it, adding cutscenes, adding gameplay to certain missions, to try and get it to feel right. And that was one of the trickiest things, because if it was just, let's say, a side scroller with 30 levels, I could just progressively do harder and harder levels, introduce new enemy types, new weapons. But with the open world thing, it's like I'm trying to hit both the comedy and the satire and the story, and also have the gameplay. And so you have this just pool of ideas for this could be a mission, that could be a mission, and then you have to figure out how can I make it work together. And then when you get it working together, then you know you have to add connective tissue and tweak it more, so that you're just like, well, this could lead into this, so I should add something here. But then also you can add breadcrumbs, which is, I think, you know, it's kind of a sidetrack note, but one of the things that Netflix shows have had versus network shows is that they can build a whole season at once and then go back and add breadcrumbs before they start filming.
Right.
And that's what I was able to do as a game developer and that was one of the most satisfying parts in development, was where I was like, okay, so I have these 3 characters because maybe if I do an entire game that's just jokes about spreadsheets, that won't be for everyone. So I need to add this punk kid who's doing jobs with the local gang. But then when I was able to get those missions to still work into the business storyline, that really just felt like, yes.
That's awesome, because you created this whole metagame of you're shaking down Hawaii. You're trying to own the whole island, basically.
Yeah. Which
is, I mean, how did you prep for that? Was that something, did you study some, real estate law or anything like that, or was there?
I have listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that, like Planet Money and stuff, and that, you know, there were some ideas in there, and a lot of it too, funnily, just came from years of being a consumer, and I think some stuff just got under my skin more, and at some point I thought it was just funny to make fun of. Like, I was buying this breakfast cereal for over 10 years. It says 13 grams of protein on the box. Then you look on the side, it says 13 with milk.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you're
my
like,
God,
oh,
yeah.
my God. And so after a while, I started jotting all that down and figuring out ways I could make a game out of it. And then, there was literally a time I got off the phone with a cell phone company telling me I'd have to upgrade my phone plan for the 4th time in a row. And I was just like, okay, that's a mission.
There is so much stuff in this world that scams us, isn't it? It's crazy.
But the intent with it was like not to be angry about it. Like it was just like, it's gotten so ridiculous. It's just funny. It's like I'm sadly kind of at peace with it. It's just the way it is. But at least we can get a point by just laughing about it rather than getting ourselves worked up.
Yeah, and I think that commitment to try to come up with a story to have a message but not hammer it over people's head. That must have been, scary, but also creatively pretty freeing for you too.
That was one of the hardest parts,
Yeah.
absolutely. To try and touch on all these things without beating someone over the head, without it coming across like a rant, without it coming across like a PSA, because none of that was my intent. But to strike that balance where it was funny and fun.
Very RoboCop.
Yeah.
Was that one of the...
Not particularly, but yeah, RoboCop is absolutely amazing.
Right.
Adding, that was the thing, is like on paper, the whole idea, what if it's like an open world game where you're stealing cars and shooting stuff, but instead of a gangster or mobster, it's a CEO, and it somehow comes with a boardroom harebrained scheme, but just turns into shootouts. That sounded easy on paper. It turns out it was really hard. And so, some ways where I just had shortcuts where I'm like, okay, they're going to seize a bunch of farms. There are some action missions that's just shooting stuff. But then later on, I just kept adding stuff where I'm just like, oh, I figured out a way where you can steal this coffee truck for beans or something.
Was the multiple character decision a direct, a tip of the hat to Grand Theft Auto 5, or was it more your own design and it just came out of you prepping the work organically?
So it completely came out organically, and it made me really wonder, because I'd heard rumors that that Rockstar was looking into it way back in San Andreas. They had the idea. So I'm sure they had many reasons, but for me, originally it was just the CEO character. Mm-hmm. But then I realized, if I want to make this somewhat plausible, as goofy as it is, he can't be going around, especially if he's some CEO that's somewhat known and has a book out with his face on the cover.
Yeah.
So I made missions where he's got a disguise. So when he goes to do dirty work, he puts on a disguise. But then even that, certain missions, I was like, this just doesn't feel in character for a CEO, no matter how, unscrupulous. And so I added the mercenary guy. And then from that point, I was just like, you know what? I want these missions where it's just like this wannabe DJ delinquent son that's just doing stupid stuff.
That's awesome.
And it came out of there. So,
how do you start your process? Is this something where you've got to, because you've been a big part of Full Indie in the past, you've got lots of friends in game development everywhere. Do you dare share an idea with these guys, or do you share an idea with Victoria?
Yeah.
And see what sticks and what people kind of resonate, and then you pursue that, or how do you do it?
I don't do enough market research. I pretty much just pursue what drives me, which is good and bad. Luckily, second time's the charm, it's worked out, but it is not the best business decision. Someone I really admire, actually, I'm not sure if you know Ryan Clark, who did Crypto the Necrodancer.
Okay, yes.
And they just announced Cadence of Hyrule.
I can't wait to have them on the show,
So he is very smart. Like, he figures out games that he's super, super passionate about, but he also looks at the market. He's like, okay, this idea has a market, this one doesn't, so I'll go with the one.
Right.
And so he's a brilliant guy in that way. But with me, I'm just kind of like, you know what, I'll just make what I make and then try and make it good, and hopefully there'll be an audience.
Well, I mean, you pixelated one of the most successful franchises of all time. You sort of 8-bitized Grand Theft Auto, and now you've 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that makes perfect sense business-wise. I mean, these are proven entities that never really lived in, on these types of machines, and you've made those games.
Yeah, I think one thing I struggle with when I'm trying to decide about which direction to take things is the balance between story and gameplay.
Right.
Because when you look way back, GTA 1 was really gameplay focused. Now GTA 5 is really cinematic. And the cinematics and the story take longer to do than the gameplay, to be honest.
Right.
And so it comes down to the thing of like, well, should game 3 just, if I do another open world one, should it just be an action thing and see where I can go with it?
No, definitely don't do that. I think the next one would be, adding voiceovers and things like that.
Absolutely.
Maybe a PS1 era one with like super amazing cut sequences.
Well, that was something that, especially when you look at the Sierra games and how great those were when they added voices. And watching the game cutscenes, especially when I was building trailers, I was like, oh, this would be so tight if there was voiceover.
Yeah.
But I couldn't just add voiceover for a trailer because people would be disappointed in the game.
Yeah. Let's talk about the music here for a second. It's been really impressive. We actually had the game. We were testing it out. We're going to be playing a little bit later in the show. The music's incredible. It's got like this great 80s kind of synth kind of vibe to it. How did you pick the tracks? Because you're the guy that decides what works where, right? So how did you find your musicians, and how did you pick the tracks and where you place them?
So actually, it's a funny story. It actually circles back to here. So Leonard Paul, who was one of the composers and the sound effect guy on RCR, happened to find this guy, Matt Creamer, on the internet, on MySpace back in the 10 years ago. And he was doing NES style tunes, and he happened to be in the area. So Len was like, hey, I found this guy who's in the area and has made awesome tracks. You should reach out. We reached out. He was on board, brought him into RCR, and then, he worked out so well that brought him on again for Shakedown and hope to keep working with him forever. And he's so talented that he can do literally every genre. So it's really nice for him to be able to show the world, like, look, I'm more than just NES bleeps and bloops.
Yeah.
And we explored a whole bunch of different genres and angles. And at first, it started out being really, like, accurate to the 16-bit era. FM synthesizers, all of that. And it sounded to me, I think, now
we hear it a lot now, don't we? Yeah.
And I want to give the game more the rose-tinted glasses approach.
Sure.
And so I was like, you know what? This is 100% accurate. It's like exactly what it should be, but it just sounds too retro.
Yeah.
And so we kind of tweaked, and eventually, the light bulb moment was, he sent me just this track. He's like, okay, well, I'm just experimenting with these new instruments. Just here's a 30-second thing, and it was just like, wow. And I was like, that's it.
So dope.
Do more with that 30 seconds.
It's like Tangerine Dream kind of. Yes, on a cartridge.
Yes.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You've worked with Nintendo clearly to make this a hot game for the Switch, and I know that they probably wanted to lock it down on that machine.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you talked with any of the people that were around when the Super Nintendo was around, and it gave you any feedback about how a game like that would have handled on the Super Nintendo.
Those are my heroes, and I always watch every GDC Classic post-mortem I can and listen to interviews with all of them. And, I even reached out to some to try and get some artists from back in the day working on the game. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot of them, funny enough. There's that new ZX Spectrum Next.
Yes.
And a lot of them are actually, there was one who wasn't able to work on the game because he's busy making a game for the Spectrum Next.
Unbelievable. And Tommy's releasing the Intellivision.
Earthworm Jim.
What a weird world, huh?
Yeah.
Like and it's a great, there's commentary about this in your game, but it's a great commentary on this games as service kind of obsession that we're in. And I don't mean to throw that under the bus. I think it can work. I love the Division 2, but it's almost like in the face of that, people want just clean simplicity. They want escapism that they can wrap their whole mind around.
Yeah, I really liked the fact that it's like, in the game, not only do you not have to spend money on cosmetics or whatever, but in the game, you don't even have to unlock cosmetics.
Yeah.
Everything's unlocked, all the colors, all the hairstyles, everything from the get-go.
That's great.
And
So you're getting political, man. You're making your statement.
I try to avoid that, but it was one of those things where it's just, as a designer, it just didn't make sense. I was like, well, why would I put it, like, it's literally a palette swap. Why would I put this behind a
Did I see the Dark Knight Tumbler cruising around in the streets?
So that's the funny thing is I'm a little typecast from RCR, so I think a lot of people go in with glasses looking for references, but I kind of tried to go cold turkey in that regard.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You didn't put any. Did you?
No.
Did you put any allusions or connections
So
to RCR?
I'll tell you, breaking news, top secret, inside info. Scooter, the character, the delinquent Mohawk kid, his name was originally Tutorial because part of the game was he was going to be the tutorial missions.
Okay.
But then I was like, no, that's too much of a reference. So I gave him a name, called him Scooter.
Oh my God.
But that was his original name. Yeah.
Was that kind of another way to challenge yourself when making this was to kind of just clamp down and say this is going to be a different approach entirely?
Well, I found that, there's a lot of psychology involved in design and experience.
Sure. Yeah.
And I found that it's just like one breadcrumb of a reference, and that can frame the whole experience.
Right.
And so I felt like that's just one breadcrumb. And so I had to change it. And it made sense anyways, because after a while, as the game grew in, he wasn't particularly the tutorial missions anymore, just some of them.
You have made 2 Grand Theft Auto style games almost entirely by yourself, which is insane. Just breaking news. But I'm wondering if you've heard from the Grand Theft Auto team at all. Anybody from GTA?
They don't seem to go out in public too much. I've met.
They're working.
Yeah, I've met some briefly here or there at GDC and just told them, I'm a huge fan and stuff. And one of them congratulated me because RCR was in the IGF that year, and so all my experiences have been great so far. But I would love to maybe meet them and sit down and chat, but I'm sure they're way too busy.
That's
for sure.
crazy.
Yeah.
Do you have I mean, it's hard not to see that connection, right? And I don't mean to, say that it's just like from that world or whatever. But I'm wondering, you're clearly a fan of the franchise.
Yeah.
Was there a favorite one? Was it Chinatown Wars? What GTA game really nailed it?
So the ones that I would say Vice City is the one that really, when I think back to memories of playing it, just waiting around for it to go on the shelves, and then they were sold out. So I loitered at the mall for hours because, and there were words, it was like, Toys R Us is going to get a shipment at 4, and just eventually got my copy, got it home, cracked it open. It's pitch dark outside, and just booted it up, and it was just magic. And so it refined, like GTA 3 got me back to console gaming. I was a console gamer, but there was this dark period where I was a PC gamer during like the PS1 era.
Yes.
And then the PS2 GTA brought me back, and it was a system
because it was
seller.
Exclusive, right?
Exclusive, right? Yeah, exclusive sell.
They do sell, yes.
They do sell.
Are you done with that as a franchise? Do you think?
It's a good question. I have so many other ideas for games that aren't open world, and I think I owe it to myself and to fans to try something different.
Right.
But I also want to keep supporting the game, and so I have ideas for more stuff to build upon on it and add to it. I called it Shakedown Hawaii because I wanted to leave the door open for other cities. But at this moment, I'm just like, add to this game.
He has that sort of, I'm going to take over the world kind of quality, doesn't he?
And I was actually I was laughing with people today because I was looking at hotels to book, and they had removed the sort by price option. I was like, oh, another mission idea.
Really?
Yeah.
They had removed the sort by price
option. Yeah, you could
option.
sort by distance, sort by rating.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
What's been one of your favorite comments about the game so far now that it's out on the wild? Maybe not from a friend or from another developer, but somebody that's just found this game and they're playing it and they're...
Well, the thing that's been the most heartwarming and hit the most home for me has been just that I spent years trying to hit this narrow target with the tone and the humor.
Yeah.
And when people got it, and that was the funny thing. It was like, luckily for my sanity, all the early reviews got it.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, wow, they got it and they got it and they got it. And it's one of those things where you don't know because people are going to interpret things differently. They're going to see things differently.
Yeah.
And so it's like I aimed for a target and it hit for some people. And I was just like, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've got Grand Theft Auto in there, but you've also got the mechanics of being able to jump, kind of like a Mario game. Mm-hmm. Am I right in saying that Eugene Jarvis had a little bit of influence in there? You can you can spin the controller and shoot in different directions. It turns into a bit of a dual stick in some way.
Yeah, not so much. It's interesting, some of those things, because originally back with RCR, it was just a single fire button with a lock on, and people kept telling me, you got to add twin stick, and I wasn't really a twin stick gamer at the time, but I was like, oh, okay, I'll add it for you. And then now I love it.
Yeah.
And similarly, there have been a few things throughout that where originally it just had tank controls for driving. Mm-hmm. People were just like, come on, you got to add this other mode. And I was like, oh, fine. And then I added it, and 45% of players who played RCR preferred that mode. So it's just like, that's here to stay, and I'm glad that they pressured me to do that.
Yeah, the controls of the vehicles are incredible.
Oh, thank you.
There are moments in this game that feel ripped right out of the parody of a RoboCop or a Running Man. And Smash TV is the Eugene Jarvis classic that this kind of reminded me of. And did you butt up against any classic games like that? Was that something that you were thinking of when you were putting it together?
In this case, no. I mean, like, I was a huge fan of GTA and built RCR as this 8-bit open world, but when I approached Shakedown, it was really just like, you know what, like, all those years of playing the game are just in my DNA, and I'm just, there's so many lessons I've learned from playing them, but when I went to do Shakedown, I was just like, okay, blank canvas, where do I take it? And I just came up with the characters and the story and built stuff from there, missions evolved, and then as I played in the world, like, I was like, wow, shooting the flamethrower from a go-kart's fun. Can I make a mission out of that? and it just went from there.
That's awesome. When you were on before, we talked a little bit about how this game would manage on an actual Super Nintendo. How do you think it would fare?
So the main thing is the destructibility and all the particle effects, and the game has a lot of detail where there are a lot of different types of trees, and the sidewalk, for example, it's not just like one repeated texture, it's all sorts of different ones.
Yeah, there's so much detail.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, so I'd have to crunch that down, but I definitely do plan to optimize it to older systems and stuff like that. I don't know. I think that when it comes to SNES, I'd have to build
You got to do
a
a
new
SNES,
game.
man.
I want to.
Yeah, and then work with Limited Run or something like that.
I mean, I can do those all myself. So
can you
it's
build
all
cartridges
good.
by yourself?
Yeah, I back in the day designing PCBs and the schematics and stuff.
This guy is going to go and make his own Super Nintendo cartridges.
That, you know, it's funny. It's like, it's one of those things. At some point, I do need to draw the line, because I can design it myself, but at some point, maybe I should just. Other companies already do it. Maybe
we live in a even if it's not games of service, we live in a world where games are live and they live in people's lives, and they talk about it, you know, and they complain about it and they celebrate it, but there's so much chatter. When can you take a vacation? Like, when does that happen?
Right. You know, it's nice that the launch has been going smoothly, so I feel like I'll be able to take a vacation sooner than I thought, but there is still a lot to wrap up. So the first thing is just, there are a few more tweaks I want to do, then do the first update, and then finish the 3DS release and the physical releases, and then I think I can take a little break.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it's right now you can get it on the Switch?
The Switch.
PC? Vita?
Yep. And PS4 crossplay.
And PS4 crossplay.
Yeah.
So is it going to come to the Xbox One?
It might later, but it's one of those things where I'm releasing it on all the other platforms that RCR released on, or not all of them, but you know, that batch. And the engine was already ported. I already had all the paperwork filled out, copy paste. Xbox I haven't released on Xbox One yet, and so I'd have to start from the ground up. And you know, I want to have a good relationship with Microsoft. I know I had my past.
Yes.
I want to have a good relationship, and there are a lot of people requesting it. This will be the game
that mends bridges right there.
You know,
it creates harmony.
I want to, you know, at
Phil,
this point,
work with Brian. He's an incredible dude.
You know, I'm older now, and I just like a peaceful life and like to be on good terms with everyone, and you know, try and let things slide.
When does the next Brian Provinciano game get going, and when do you foresee a launch for whatever that might be? Do you have the idea?
I've got a lot of ideas, and the worst part is that the idea started flowing like a waterfall about a year and a half ago.
Oh, no.
And I was so excited to get into them.
Oh,
but
no,
you know,
you can't do that.
Yeah,
no.
had to bite the bullet, just finish Shakedown. And you know, I'm still absolutely passionate
you
about it.
got to have a kid, and then you get just put them to work and making tiny textures or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
There you right, and keep it in the family.
When's Ruby making games?
She'll be hosting next week, actually.
Oh, nice.
I'm away, so she's coming in. She's 7, so it'll be an interesting show. But
yeah,
she's going to be great. Yeah, so we have a couple of years then. Before maybe 3 years.
See, the games have been more work than feeding a baby. Okay, that's a lie. People get mad at me for saying that, but it's been a lot of responsibility, and so I just couldn't possibly. You know, that's the thing is I think what I need to try and do is not dive into something right away, because I've just been nonstop. Years of something that's 7 days a week, then years of something that's 7 days a week.
Oh, it's not good. They're writing Kotaku articles about that right now. It's called crunch.
Yes.
You can't live crunch, dude.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You know, I've been there. I was sleeping at the office when I was working at other companies and all that, and it's It's something that it's tricky to get right, especially when the pressure's on you and it's your name on the box. Because when I was working for other companies, it's like there were times when we were fighting to meet deadlines, but at the end of the day, it's the producer's, responsibility. If we miss it, he's got to deal with it.
We have a question from Sam I Am 111, who always has good questions for us. This one's, do you think Obra Dinn took notes about their display options from what you did in Retro City Rampage?
I actually am not familiar with that game.
Oh, it's a very cool monochromatic, it's just like a couple of colors. It's like a pirate mystery adventure.
No, I do know that one.
Yeah.
It's really high resolution dithered pixels.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, it looks gorgeous. I don't know, but it looks amazing.
And it's in 3D.
Yeah.
It's surreal. Yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah.
It's trippy. I'm seeing... thank you very much for the super chats, Joshua, and two from Joshua. You rock, man. Thank you so much. If you've got any questions with Brian, now's your chance. Nintendo Boy, you got a question? Johnny Millennium.
Hey, how you doing?
We've only ever talked online.
Yeah.
Reality.
Yeah, you weren't here last time. I was looking forward to seeing you.
I did watch it later on. My question is this one. I think a lot of people want to know, is there going to be physical copies going forward in the future?
So
Johnny's asked if there's going to be physical copies going forward in the future.
So I was able to squeeze out a Vita one, and I'm going to do Switch and PS4 as well. But the main thing was I was tweaking and tuning the game up till the very last minute.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to rush out cartridges with a incomplete game on there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll just do it after it's
Everybody is cool with that too, right? Yeah. If they really want the game right now to play it, they can do it.
Yeah.
It is one of those very collectible experience, just like RCR was.
Yeah.
It's just so fresh and unique. Apart from the fact that one human kind of shepherded all of it, it's just a great idea. It's like one of those ones that the rock was chiseled away, and it's there it is.
Yeah.
It was there.
Yeah.
You just had to dust off everything, and it's it's got a sense of permanence about it.
Yes. I mean, having it on the wall, it was funny. I was telling someone about I want to release it on these other platforms physically, and they were saying do you really need to? You could just print it out and put it on the wall. You don't you don't have to go through all the work of manufacturing the stuff. Yeah. And I was like, no, I want to. I want the real thing.
That's awesome.
But I did the nice thing that I feel is the best possible scenario is unfortunately it's not. A lot of people want it physically and they can't get it physically at launch, but I announced before launch that it is coming physically, so it's you won't have to have that thing where you buy it digitally and then get frustrated that now you got to buy it again. It's if you're patient and you can wait, then it's good to go.
Awesome. Sam I Am's got another one. He's clearly a fan of yours. Is there anything that remains of the work that you've done on Grand Theft Tendo? Any files, palettes, etc.? What happened with that one?
I mean, it's still on a hard drive, but
did someone ask you to stop, or what happened?
No, it was just that at one point I just realized, number one, building it on the NES at the time was just way it wasn't gonna be as fun and cool if I had kept it on the NES due to the limitations.
Yeah.
And I was building it all in assembly language, so it was a lot slower a process.
Right.
And then
it's kind of the research that you needed to be able to convert that into finished games.
Yeah. And exactly. And then the other thing is eventually I was just you know what, this whole indie thing is actually starting to take off, and if I made an original game, I could actually maybe go indie and not have to work this day job and make the games I want to make. It's funny because now I am inspired again to go back and do retro development and build stuff on the SNES and stuff. And people ask me if I would finish that old ROM, and it's just I don't want to, because I feel if I started from scratch knowing what I know now, 15 years of programming experience on top of that,
right,
I could just build something so much better. And it's funny because back then I was just I don't think it'll achieve the greatness it could if it's on NES hardware. I need to just do it on PC in the style of NES.
Yeah.
And then now I'm just no, I think I could do something cool on hardware. I think I've learned a few things.
I feel they're with the success of the analog systems, and there's a whole nother new market that's emerging for that, software on that ancient hardware.
Right.
I think that'd be really rad.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you, buddy.
Thank you. It's always good
I
to
want to
see
see some Shakedown Hawaii action figures. Hopefully you've got something cooking on that. Are you going to now go in vacation in Hawaii, or are you done with Hawaii? Hawaii's got enough of your life.
I would love to go there. I love going there, but there are so many people. Like, I've been promising friends in the UK that I've been going to visit them for years, and then I'm always like, oh, too many deadlines. Oh, the weather's bad over there.
Yeah.
and so finally.
Yeah, I think you have about 3 weeks, so
Yeah.
you can hit, and it's got some sunshine over there.
Yeah.
You should go.
No,
It's beautiful
yes,
over there.
Yes.
Brian Provinciano, everybody. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. All right, we've got a review that you've been waiting for. It took me a little while. I've been traveling. Here's Mortal Kombat 11.
Fatality.
So in between trips to California and to Ontario, I have been spending a lot of time with Mortal Kombat 11. And yes, I know this review is a little bit late, but I've finally got some thoughts on this. I've beat the story. I've spent a lot of time in the towers. I've spent some time customizing characters. I've cruised around inside of the crypt. I've gone into some of the practice areas to learn how to do special moves and some fatalities. And I can tell you unabashedly that I freaking love this game.
Through the Netherrealm with
NetherRealm and all of the creative hands that have touched this franchise over the years have really created an indelible universe here.
Who's the special guest villain?
We've got this god of time in this one who is manipulating everything and can reverse time, and then we've got all kinds of younger versions of characters. They're all fun. Some of them have forearms. Some of them have sort of magic attacks. Some of them are just vicious. Some of them have handguns and grenade launchers. Some of them can zip super fast. Some of them can fly across the screen. It's a little bit of a, crazy. Why is this soldier next to this lightning god? It almost reminds you of the Avengers. It almost reminds you of the Avengers movies where all of these different types meet and battle each other. It's epic and it's crazy. If you happen to be a Mortal Kombat fan, I think you're going to love the new lore that's crafted for you. There's some great surprises, especially endgame in the story. There are all kinds of, great acknowledgments and nods to lots of Mortal Kombat moments throughout the ages.
fight.
It is crazy addictive and ridiculously violent. I don't even know if we should show some of the visuals in this thing. It's disgusting. But it is so compelling and so fun and so tuned and so polished, and it's such fan service for people that have been playing Mortal Kombat for, I think it's 25 years. I remember interviewing Ed Boon and John Tobias about Mortal Kombat 2 for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis at E3 1995. These guys have been doing this for a long time.
Seems like only yesterday.
And I always wonder, and I think I've asked Ed this about 15 times over the years, how do you guys get sort of fired up to go back into this franchise and bring new iterations on something that we're very familiar with?
We all have our duty.
And that is absolutely something that you're going to tune into if you've played Mortal Kombat for many years. This is not going to feel like a revolution on the way that you play the game.
Fuck you.
It is very much, the back and forth on a two-dimensional plane. There are some 3D elements where characters will swoop in and do some crazy throw or some, amazing stab move or some disappearing act and then vaporize and then pop right back in and play with that 3D element in 3D space. But for the most part, you are dealing with, on that linear, familiar plane, back and forth, bashing the crap out of each other, trying to remember the button combos and the ability to kind of juice up. That's one of the new things that they've added this time is you can press that R1. I played this on the PlayStation 4. You can press that R1 button and basically give yourself a little extra energy or a little extra boost as you're completing combos and doing that rock, paper, scissors kind of timing effectively against your opponent inside of the hitbox. Now I'm going to get into all kinds of esports terminology, which I don't know. And I'm not one of those guys. All I can tell you is that it felt really slick and really fun and kind of effortlessly enjoyable to play.
I heard that.
And I did feel myself getting better. I still feel like I know Scorpion the best. It was fun to see all of the different characters' special moves and power-ups. And they have these kind of last-ditch effort power moves that happen when your health bar has gone right down and you press the 2 trigger buttons. And then it goes to a cut sequence that's particularly gruesome. Like Scorpion will shoot his chain knife into people's eyes and then he'll jump and push it with his feet into their eyeballs a little bit more and then they'll push him into the ground and he'll jump up. You get the idea. The amount of stuff going inside of people's skulls and chests and then pushed in extra, and then like you'll chop off a person's head in this game and have no compunction of then also punching that head into a bloody spray. It's so disgusting. Baraka's fatality really just, I don't even want to show it. It's like repulsive. The core mechanics are crazy fun, and yes, what they've done with Mortal Kombat 11 is clearly they've learned a lot of lessons, not only from Injustice, because Injustice 2 offered all of these customizable options, which became their new compulsion, their new obsession, and I'm sure with all the extra, in-game purchases that you could do to sort of stack up your characters visually, I'm sure they made tons of money by people going into the store and buying extra in-game credits to buy all kinds of stuff that made their Supermans and their Batmans look better. A lot of that sort of mechanic is here, and of course there's lots of news about how NetherRealm has kind of juiced it, so if you want everything, you're going to be spending a lot of money or many hours in this game.
Here we go again.
But truthfully, you can't unlock everything if you are addicted to everything. I don't know how many people really are out there where they got to have every headband that Liu Kang can fit, and they've got to have every single piece of armor that each of the characters can apply. You unlock a lot of that stuff in the crypt as you're running around. You get rewarded for defeating objectives in towers and basically kicking ass in the game. You get rewarded in lots of different ways. And yes, they've figured out how to monetize. And yes, that code of mobile gaming paint that's applied to this is a little bit awful and nefarious, and it's rampant throughout the games industry.
Well, we're in the shit now.
It's an industry that's completely trying to figure out how to monetize in as many different ways as possible, but there are also commitments, and I sound like I'm making excuses, which I'm not, because I really wish that there wasn't any of that stuff in there, but it's an industry that's trying to figure out what that balance is, and we're still in the middle of it. I think we're maturing in the middle of it, and I think we're going to figure this out pretty soon.
There's got to be a way to make this right.
And I think there's definitely a pushback from console players and people that have already spent the full price for the game to have to deal with any, call-outs to go to the store. Unless you're buying a special character or something like that, that makes more sense, or a stage. But, all of these cosmetic things after you paid full price seem a little insidious, especially if the game has been tooled to kind of push you into that direction or suggest you into that direction.
Such wasted potential.
All that being said, I'm not one of those players that gives a crap about that stuff. I'm just going to play what I earn and what's unlocked for me. I think there's copious amounts of content and entertainment in this. There's tons of characters. The one thing that I will say, though, is that the more I played this, the more I wanted another Injustice. Because as much as I love Mortal Kombat, and I think these characters are incredible, but I'm just personally a lot more familiar and I just happen to love the DC superhero lore a lot more than the Mortal Kombat stuff. And I think NetherRealm has been killing it on Injustice, and they've been killing it on Mortal Kombat.
Lock and load.
This is crazy fun, and you're going to have a great time playing against a pal in the same room as you, or against an enemy online, or getting into the tournaments and the conquests and the tower battles and playing through the story again. This is an excellent game, and NetherRealm, they're an amazing company. I'm going to give Mortal Kombat 11 a 9 out of 10. Josue is here. We're already starting our Shakedown Hawaii, but we've got another thing to take a look at. Here's our buried treasure today. I have a fantastic buried treasure for you guys today. This one is suggested by our good friend Cooper Bobo, Thirsty Robot on Twitter. He says we should talk about Titan Souls, which actually came out a few years ago now, 2015. I guess it was first put out on the PC, but it's come out on a bunch of different platforms. I played it on the PlayStation 4 and absolutely loved it. It's kind of a top-down take on a lot of the concepts that we saw in Shadow of the Colossus. You're not really climbing up and down on some of the giant bosses that you have to fight, but you are challenged by them, and you only have a little bit of weaponry and mobility at your disposal, so you have to be incredibly talented to get past all of the awesome challenge that all of these boss fights provide. You are sort of, unlocking secrets and opening different areas that are accessed by toppling some of these giant beasts that you have to face, and you've got to use different strategies for each of these different massive creatures. There was an elegance and a refinement and just a sheer sort of sense of joy and appreciation for video games of yore. And clearly, you can see the influences of Zelda and the influences of Shadow of the Colossus threaded all the way through this, but that's okay. These are some of the best games ever made, and why not make more titles sort of in that direction? I was really shocked and really surprised by how much I loved Titan Souls and how beautiful it was. Even though it was minimalist in its design, the game is just sheer fun, and that's why Titan Souls is absolutely a buried treasure. Lots of classic games in today's show, and we've got a new classic game here with Shakedown Hawaii. Josue is playing it. He's getting used to the controls. Do you like driving around in the game?
Yeah, it's really cool. The animation's really awesome, too. I like the look of the whole city.
It's crazy how much detail it is, right? You just don't think that they've drawn every revolution of the vehicle, but it's all, I mean, it almost looks like a 3D object that's been pixelized. It's that detailed, which is incredible work. Ryan's sitting right over there just gloating right now, and he should be. Yeah, it's amazing. So this is Let's Play and Chat, so if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free while I'm waiting for a comment or a question to come in. And thank you, everybody, for being here, by the way. Nintendo Boy 17, and Wesley West, and Brian Mitchell, and Sam I Am 111 with the great questions, Nintendo Boy 17, Clayton Blair is there, love you, Clayton. Who else we got out there? Brian Mitchell. Oh, I turned it up. Oh, you got it on you got it up there. Okay. Somebody's talking about John Wick. Can't wait to see that. While I'm waiting, I'll tell you that we've got Adrian Leon. Good to see you, my friend. We've got a bit of a break on EP Lives because the E3 madness has begun. Next week I'm in Los Angeles. I don't know what I could say. I think I can say a tiny, I'm checking out some games. I don't know, I can't tell you what I'm checking out, but I'm checking out some games. So I'll be shooting some interviews and getting some information for you. We'll still be making content, but EP Live in the studio doesn't, we don't come back until the 22nd of May, which is quite a ways. It's like 2 weeks from today, I think, is the next time that we're in here. We're off on Friday because there's an event here from the Vancouver Film School, and then I'm away, and I don't get back until the 20th, so till the evening of the 20th, so the next time will be the 22nd, and then I'm off to Anime North in Toronto for that following weekend. So it's a little bit scattered, a little bit all over the place, but trust me, we are going to be making a ton of very fun EP Lives over the next several months. We're going to be here all the time, and we want you guys to come on down and enjoy the show. It's great, right?
Yeah, it is awesome.
It's fun to come down. Okay, a question to everyone. Who saw the Rotten Tomatoes score to Detective Pikachu? That's why Johnny's in the room right now, actually. We're going to go and see Detective Pikachu tonight. I have not seen the score. I don't want to see the score, because we'll just go and see it and make up our own damn minds. Question from Farimer. With the PS5 on the horizon, do we see fewer games being released? I think we see fewer games being released. There's chaos happening. Everybody's shooting and blowing stuff up. This is amazing. We're seeing fewer games getting released because everybody's swinging for the billion-dollar fence, and they're trying to kind of one-up each other in terms of production value, and these things are incredibly expensive. Or they're trying to come up with a games as service kind of model that is going to make them lots of money over an extended period of time and keep their developers employed. It's a very tumultuous time in the game industry. I, for one, feel that if we had 4K quality PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 games, that kind of era, or even PS2, original Xbox, GameCube kind of level of games, but they were in 4K with the sort of same amount of team, except maybe a little bit more with the art, I feel like we're missing a lot of AA games. And we can't put that all on the back of developers, or indie developers. I mean, we can't put that all on the back of indie developers taking a huge risk to assemble a team that's at sort of a mid-level scale. I feel like the publishers out there should find some interesting ways to kind of hit that mid-level and not expect every one of their games to make billions and billions of dollars. Just make us cool games. Good question, but there are tons of games out there to play, Farimer. Hey Vic, have you heard about the remake that was done with Vader and Kenobi fighting A New Hope? I saw that today. It was very impressive. It's an animated little insert into A New Hope that you can watch on YouTube. Have I played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild with the Nintendo Labo VR yet? I have not, because I was away last week, but my daughter and I definitely plan to do that. We might do that tomorrow, actually. We've built a little bit of the Labo VR stuff. I've shot her putting some of the stuff together for the review, so stay tuned. I'm definitely going to have some talk about that. Mega Man X9 would be a great mid-level game. Yeah, and that's the other thing, man. I've been playing a lot. I bought the Mega SG, and I have my Super NT, and they're sitting there right under my TV, ready to go, and I've got cartridges stacked up all over the place. I've been playing a lot of old kart games, and I just feel like this industry just moves on too quickly. We just scrub out the look at this game that we're playing right now. This is a modern, Super Nintendo style version of Grand Theft Auto, and it's still ridiculously fun. And I feel like we don't need to chase that technology all the time and try to blow everybody away. Just make us good games, And the game studios could do that. I mean, I keep tweeting out, wouldn't it be amazing if we could play 16-bit style versions of the MCU, right? Like, wouldn't it be incredible to play
Absolutely.
like a Captain Marvel game set in the 90s? Why wasn't there a Super Nintendo Captain Marvel game?
Yeah, Avengers Brawler.
Oh, an Avengers Brawler, yeah, totally. Like a side-scrolling brawler would be incredible. Sort of back to the Capcom heyday. Comment, finally saw Endgame. I haven't cried in the theater since Return of the King. Yes, it's pretty heavy emotional. Nice to have you back, Victor. What are you excited about for E3? I really hope that we're seeing something new for Batman. I think it's time to see something around Batman. Let me think about that. I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to see some stuff. I think we have to make a video about the things that I'm excited about for E3 and some of the predictions and stuff. Maybe I'll recruit Johnny and we can have a nice conversation about that. But I'm excited to see Kojima's game. What's it called again?
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding. I'm excited to see that and probably play that. Excited to probably get hands on time with Last of Us 2. Dying Light is coming back. I'm excited about that. There's going to be tons of the Star Wars game.
I just see Metroid.
Metroid, yeah, I don't think that's coming though. I think
They have to remake it.
Yeah, they're starting from scratch again. Okay, let's see. Mobile release. Kian Kashani. Brian Provinciano, is there going to be a mobile version of this? No plans right now for a mobile version of Shakedown Hawaii.
How about VR?
Horizon Zero Dawn sequel. Yeah, now everybody's talking about E3 right now. Kind of like Scott Pilgrim, Wesley West chiming in there with the sort of SNES, the retro kind of charm of that game that Ubisoft made a while ago. Exactly like that. I think that if Scott Pilgrim came out today, both the movie and that game, they would both be much bigger hits than they were when they were so ahead of their time, and they were so behind their time as well. Vic, thank you for saying my name in the rundown. It made me so happy. You rock. Thank you so much, Rowan Strata. You rock. Question from Farimer. With failures in Anthem and Destiny 2, do we see fewer looter shooters in the future? Yeah, I think some hard lessons are learned. And I don't know if they're failures, quote unquote. Well, some lessons are learned, absolutely. I think, wouldn't it make sense? I just thought of that today, but wouldn't it make sense if you've got this massive plan to make a looter shooter, to kind of test it out with a single-player game or a sort of a smaller contained multiplayer experience? Maybe you can do 4-player co-op or something, and see if people love it, and then you come back. Like Gears, to me, is like, now, they've proven that franchise. Why wouldn't you want to, if you're thinking just about the dollars and just about where you can go with this, why wouldn't you come back with that? I'm not suggesting that the Coalition is doing that or they should do that, but why wouldn't you come back and make that some kind of a looter-type shooter? The base is already there. I feel like these companies kind of shoot themselves in the foot chasing that technology. Games are not just technology. It's an artistic medium. All the way through, the programming's artistic, and I feel like sometimes they stumble and they trip. It's exciting when the technology and everything kind of works, but sometimes I wish they wouldn't overreach. We talking about PS games tomorrow. More VR love, VR Grid. I see that comment. This is the last question. This one's from Jamie Andrews. Some of us made buried treasures. Where can we send them to you? You can upload them to your own YouTube channel, and you can send us a message on Facebook, I think is probably the easiest thing, or upload them as a private video on Facebook and send us a message to the Electric Playground, facebook.com/Electric Playground. I think that's the easiest way to get them to us. I know there's a comment system within YouTube, but it's a little bit complicated. So I would say you put the video on your own YouTube channel, make it unlisted, and send us a link on our Facebook page as a secret, as a special private message. I think would be the easiest. Good question, Jamie. So I'm going to see you guys tomorrow with a brand new rundown. But EP Live, just a reminder, we're not back in the studio until May 22nd. So there still will be lots of content headed your way. Don't you worry. And I'm off in Los Angeles getting some good stuff for you as well. But thank you so much for watching today. You guys have yourselves a great night. Make sure you get out there into the sunshine, take a break from your games. But in your mind and when you get back into your house, make sure you play forever.